Hey there, it's ChocoGoob again, and in this video I wanted to talk about taking a break. Taking a break is a concept which is important to any sort of game when you're playing sort of a long gaming session, right? If you're going for a few hours or several hours, it really should put in little breaks in there just to keep you fresh, to keep you from sort of vegging away at the computer. Because even though sort of being at the computer is a little bit more stimulating than being at the TV, you can still sort of get into this focus mindset that just really isn't good. It isn't very healthy to just be focused on a computer for hours and hours and hours without any sort of break. But in competitive games where you're facing versus an opponent, such as StarCraft 2, or if you're doing PvP in, say, World of Warcraft, or, of course, in League of Legends, which is what I'm making this video for, taking breaks becomes even more important, even when you're not playing for hours, just between games, especially, and I'm going to bring it up in a moment, in the situation that I'm about to describe. So today I decided I was going to play some League of Legends games. I haven't been playing as many lately because I've been trying to do other things, looking for new jobs, looking for insurance, stuff like that, so I haven't had as much time to play lately. But I wanted to do a few more games than usual today, since I'm working at double tomorrow and things like that. And so I logged on and I loaded up my first game. I tried out a new champion, well, someone I had been playing before, but I'm still sort of practicing with LeBlanc. And the first game didn't go so well. I mean, yes, my allies were not doing well either, but I don't like that concept of saying, oh, my team is bad, my team is bad. Clearly, I can't win a game because I just keep getting bad teams. I have seen people carry teams. I have carried teams before. I know it's possible. So I know that even if my team isn't doing so well, I can at least do better, right? And I don't even always have to carry. Sometimes I have a bad team, quote unquote, and I don't carry them and we still lose, right? But as long as I know that I'm personally doing well, I don't feel as bad about it. It's not a good situation that you don't feel good losing a game, but as long as I know that I personally did well, it's not as big of an issue. And sometimes when you're doing well, even if you can't carry the team, right, sometimes, because carrying a team is very difficult, just your doing well can inspire your teammates to do better. Maybe they're not actually bad, they're just having a bad game. And the fact that you're doing well provides that sort of turn of the tide that is needed for your team to start doing better, right? So it's important not to just give up because you think your team is quote-unquote bad. But anyways, so I wasn't doing as well as I really expected. Part of it was because I'm playing a champion I'm still not entirely familiar with, and I'm still practicing with. But, you know, I needed to do better, and that didn't happen. So we lost the game. And then I loaded up another game, played as LeBlanc, and same sort of deal. You know, my team was not really doing a whole lot, but more importantly, I wasn't doing a whole lot. I wasn't really making a difference. I wasn't doing the things that I needed to do. So I get into a third game. Now, this third game is probably the game that I shouldn't have done. I was already a little frustrated at that point because I hadn't been doing well. I wasn't getting things the way that I needed them to be. And in the third game, I wasn't playing as LeBlanc. I was actually playing as one of my better champs, Kale, because someone had already picked LeBlanc. You know, I tried to call mid out, and but someone else picked up LeBlanc after I called mid, and I was like, all right, I guess I would just go Kale and go jungle. And I could tell that I was frustrated in this game because I called for a leash. I called for help with wolves and the leash. That's sort of how I work my jungle Kale. And I didn't get it. LeBlanc sat there in the middle, sat there at the turret, and asked, I pinged, I did everything I could to get their attention, but they didn't do it. And instead of simply just jungling in my alternative route, which I have an alternative route for occasions such as this when I don't get that leash that I need. It's obviously not as effective, especially since Kale really is blue dependent. But I could have at least gone into that. You know what I mean? If I had gone into my alternative route, I would have at least been able to keep up and maybe make a difference later. Instead, what happened was I sat there, tried to gank when I didn't have anything to really gank with, um, and I ended up dying once early. Um, that was sort of a bad gank. And then, the game just sort of snowballed from there. I wasn't really able to keep up with everyone else because Kale is very dependent on getting kills in order to sort of keep up in the mid game. And it was really just a bad situation where I made a lot of decisions that were really poor. The first two games I didn't do awesome, but I wasn't doing that. I wasn't doing extremely poorly. I just didn't do as well as I needed to, and part of that was because I was playing this champion that I wasn't used to. But in the third game, I played one of my two best champions, and I did awful, and that's because I made awful decisions. And those awful decisions came from the fact that I was frustrated from the results of the first two games. And so that's where the concept of taking a break comes in. When you're feeling frustrated, when you're not feeling sort of, there's no real word for it, but when you're not really feeling game ready, where you feel like you're pumped, you're ready to go, if you're not feeling that energy, you need to take a step back, maybe go for a walk, read a book, play a different game. There's all sorts of things that you can do to take a break, to just pull yourself away, and to get yourself back into the zone. I don't have a problem with people doing these long marathon gaming sessions. I've done them. I know that some people sort of outside gaming community look down upon people playing games for long periods of time. But as long as you're not doing it all the time, every day, to the exclusion of other things in your life, I don't have a problem with that. But it is important that you take these breaks, because if you don't, what happens is you just get these very frustrating game sessions. You know what I mean? You're getting these long losing streaks, so like 10 games in a row or something. And it's just not fun. The entire point of game is to be fun. But it's so many people not having fun playing games. And part of that reason is probably because they're not taking enough breaks. They're not taking enough time for themselves to simply recharge, energize, and be ready for the game. You know what I mean? It's playing a video game is not physically intense like a sport, right? And that's why a lot of sports, they don't play back-to-back-to-back games. But I can tell you that another reason why you would never want to play back-to-back-to-back games in a sport is because of that mental drain as well. They have to focus. They have to be game ready. And you can see it. You can see it in sports where they have series like baseball or basketball. If you've ever watched those, they have series of games, especially in the playoffs. And when that happens, you can see towards the end of it that sometimes players are making mistakes that they don't normally make. And that's not even, back-to-back-to-back in a few-hour period like you might do with games. This is across days. But because they have game every single day where they have to focus and put in all of their energy, sometimes they make these mental mistakes that they don't normally make towards the end of these series because they don't have that time to take a break, to refresh, to re-energize, to recharge. So that's what I'm trying to get across here. Just the importance of being able to take a break, take a step back, and get ready for the next game. You're just going to have a much more positive gaming experience because of it. Thank you.